But one of the running themes heading into Saturday night is that Lyndon Arthur just ultimately needs to follow the blueprint of Sergey Kovalev and utilise his jab. Now, some have dubbed Lyndon's jab as the best jab in British boxing, being around 6'1", 6'2", with a long reach. All he needs to do is just keep using that jab and break Yarde down, and that Yarde had no answer to Sergey Kovalev's jab. But I think people forget the context, and I'm showing you these clips because I want you to see how Kovalev is playing chess with Yarde, and that Yarde's trying to compete in these early rounds. These early rounds fatigued Yarde mentally and then ultimately physically. It wasn't just jabbing, it was a lot of the looks he was giving. It was the jab to the sternum, it was the little right hand around the back of the elbow to the rib cage. It was then jabbing back to the head, and then as the rounds went on, he started to frequently double up and triple up that jab, sitting right in front of range, fatiguing mentally Yarde, who had never boxed at this level before. He never had played chess at this level. He was constantly making Yarde think, making him make decisions. Now, does Lyndon Arthur do that? That's the thing we've got to look at. Does Lyndon Arthur stand at long to mid range and edge forward, or does he drop off and like to keep it long and like to box off the back foot? You see here, Kovalev is constantly giving different looks, and it's a different type of jab. And ultimately, it would be the jab that finished Yarde. But we're going to look at Lyndon Arthur and what he has to offer. So you can see here that the jab, it's a really aesthetically pleasing, thudding, hard jab. He mixes it from head to body. He'll sometimes drop a little right uppercut in behind as a counter punch, or whether he gets the opponent to pull full guard, he will then just drop it in. But ultimately, is this jab enough to keep Anthony Yarde off of him if he keeps throwing it at the same tempo, with the same trajectory? That is the problem. Is he going to be able to keep the distance? Because as we saw against Anim didn't allow him to have that time to think, and that's what I'm concerned about for both men in a way, is that sometimes they like to have time to think. It's who's going to take the initiative in this one. But with Lyndon, it's a good jab, but he will need to do a little bit more. Hook off the jab, sometimes lift the hand higher and throw it at different angles to try and keep Yarde off so that he doesn't read that pattern. Something I was trying to get across in the Dubois Joyce breakdown is that if you keep throwing the same jab as Daniel does, then it can become, you can read it, you can read the rhythm of it. And you'll see against Anim, he was able to cover distance even there. You can see that he's able to come in. I don't feel like Lyndon's controlling the range as he should do at his height and with such range and with that jab as he should. See here again the concern how he doesn't control the range with that lead hand. He allows Anim to cover the distance from out of range to getting himself into mid-range and then into short, where he's overwhelming him with shots. Now if we look at Anthony Yarde and how he punches to the body and his variety and his accuracy, that is a major concern. You'll see here again how Lyndon holds his feet. He has tendencies to get lazy in fights. Now whether that's because he needs a test, an acid test to keep his concentration, I don't know. But even against Dex Spellman, he found himself going up against the ropes. And he doesn't fight particularly well on the ropes. It looked good against Spellman, but against someone who's got athleticism and the punch selection and accuracy, it's going to be a different thing, because Yarde punches extremely well to the body as well as to the head. See here again, he allows him just to bulldoze his way in, the right uppercut 2 times, and then he stays there. Maybe it was too comfortable for him. Maybe, as I say, he needs that acid test for him to be sharp, razor sharp. I've watched some of his amateur stuff and I'm impressed with Lyndon to a certain extent, but then I feel like he still has some bad habits and he's got to get out of that, because on Saturday night, no matter what people think about Anthony Yarde, he's a very talented and good fighter. You can see the way he defends. He sways back a little bit there, but he leaves his body wide open. And Yarde does punch, especially with the left hook to the body, extremely well. The only thing is with Yarde, I feel like he doesn't cut the ring off particularly well when he has his man in position, but that was only fouled him one time against Kovalev. Against everyone else, his power gets him through. Whether it will be the same against Lyndon remains to be seen. I definitely feel like there's some avenues of success for Lyndon in this fight, especially if he focuses on not just the first phase of his attack, but the second and the third, especially given the fact that Yarde can overreact sometimes, especially off of feints early. You'll see here how he dips his head and then bounces back. At times he leaves himself a little bit exposed to the right hand over the top, which I'll show you that is a shot that Lyndon can throw because of his height, but also the left hook. And I feel here, even here, you'll see he looks to throw that little check hook. You can bait him into position for you to then come on the second phase. See there, that right hand over the top as the head dips. It's open for him in this fight. Both are very much economical fighters. They don't have a lot of output because they look to set their shots up. They're looking for the aggressive counters or the openings for them to lead. But Yarde especially so, who doesn't throw a lot, but he's very active with the lead hand, but doesn't throw a lot of jabs. He's always just looking for that little position, that little weakness in order for him to land his big shots. And it's here where you see Yarde, how he utilises the jab. He's very cerebral, he's looking head to body, he's moving his head from side to side, just to see that angle in which he could land an uppercut or a looping right hand round the guard or to the body or a straight right. Just constantly looking for that shot. It's where Lyndon has to break that rhythm and take his concentration, whether it be a change of foot movement, change of direction, a little feint or a jab or a counter punch. He has to do something to break that up to stop Yarde coming on. And this is where he's effective. Once he gets onto the inside and you stay around long enough, ultimately he's patient enough to then get into these positions, and then he seizes his opportunity and he puts his shots together. Doesn't exactly cut the ring off on his opponents, but once he has someone hurt, he punches hard enough and he stays on them and he finishes relatively well to head and to body. But you'll see here how the concern with that jab, you see how he shoots over Reeves' jab, and then he comes round the guard, then the head control. And remember, Lyndon tilts that head over to his right hand side. It's little things like that which Lyndon has to eradicate on Saturday night to be successful against Anthony Yarde. So the blueprint to victory for the champion Lyndon Arthur on Saturday night would be 1, to fight the fight centre ring. I think that's where he's most effective. I think when he backs up to the ropes, he leaves himself vulnerable, and I think he'll allow Yarde to then get himself into position to land his best shots. I believe if he puts the fight in the centre ring and starts to push forward without overexerting himself, and what I mean is use his lead foot to put the pressure on Yarde without actually doing much, so that he's in a position that if Yarde attacks, he can shift out, but then he can shift back in. I believe if he can then do that, keeping the pressure on Yarde mentally, that will tire Yarde. And then from there, he can then utilise his own jab, especially if he varies it from head to body and then hooks off the jab, changes the tempo. And then ultimately, it's about keeping Yarde offset. Yarde likes to reset his feet when things are not actually going anywhere. He will reset. If you can then jab him and then force him to reset again, it makes it difficult for his offense to get off. And the blueprint to victory on Saturday night for the challenger Anthony Yarde is to take away the jab as early as possible, because ultimately he cannot afford to allow Lyndon Arthur to get confidence. See, there will be some possible self-doubt with Lyndon, especially operating at this level for the first time. Yarde needs to set that doubt in his mind early, plant the seed. And he can do that as he jabs. He can jab with him, jab to the body. He can slip his head on the inside and shoot, which he has done before, the 45-degree angle jab. He can shoot the right hand over the top of the jab. Just make him feel uncomfortable, set that seed of doubt in his mind, and then from there, cover the distance with his feet. And if he can cover that distance and draw the defensive postures of Lyndon, he can then open up on the inside, that hook to the head, the right hand over the top, and the hooks to the body. And that's where ultimately his success lies. As for my thoughts on the fight, I have a feeling that Lyndon will box, given the fact that I saw some footage of him training. It seemed to be that he was on the back foot with Pat and moving round. I have a feeling that he's going to try and keep the fight at range. Yarde does tend to sometimes follow. That can be a bit of a problem, and it might be that Lyndon racks up a few rounds and is ahead. But I just have a feeling that once his feet start to hold and that lack of concentration may set in, that I just believe that the finishing power of Anthony Yarde will be enough to pull off a stoppage mid to late. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and thank you for watching, and thank you for the comments recently on the channel. Please like, share and subscribe.